said according to him.
That was so funny. I said to Todd, don't invite Nate to start talking.
Well, especially because based on.
All right, keep going.
I'm not going to get cold.
Where did Keith go?
He's in the consultation.
Like, now I'm going to kill my thyroid. Like, so
Can you wait for Keith?
That's good to know.
so I'm hoping that kind of. In fact, like one of my organizing who is like perfect at doing it. So I think it. I'm hoping we get less of a negative. I think we should. I think we should. The one.
It's my privilege to welcome you this evening to the public hearing and business meeting for the Provo City School District. It is Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, at approximately 7:10 p.m. We will begin this meeting with a roll call. And Stephanie, we'll begin with you this time.
Stephanie Bryant, Business Administrator.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Member.
Julie Rash, Board Member.
Melanie Hall, Board Vice President.
Jim Pedersen, Board President.
Keith Hertel, Superintendent.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board Member.
McKay Jensen, Board Member.
Nate Bryson, Board Member.
I would like to welcome those of the community who are here, employees who are here, and also any of you who didn't have anything better to do on a Tuesday night than to come to a board meeting. Welcome. We're grateful to have you with us this evening. We will begin with some opening remarks by Board Member Nate Bryson, after which we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Dr. Doug Finch, Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. Nate?
Okay, I'm just going to open with a prayer.
Oh, just a minute. Thank you. I missed an important one. Is there a motion to convene our public meeting and business meeting? Public hearing and business meeting?
So moved.
Second?
I second that.
Okay, we're official now. Now, Nate.
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity we have today to gather as a school district and to discuss the business. Please bless this district, that its employees and students and other community members will be safe and that they'll be protected and that we'll make wise decisions. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
I would invite you to join me and face the flag. Please join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm just going to make note of this. You probably saw this. We will talk about this later on this evening about readers or winners. I broke rule number 1. I didn't read the agenda. So I'm glad, Melanie, we were paying attention to that. Thank you. We will begin now with the public hearing for the proposed issuance of approximately $80 million of general obligation bonds. Stephanie?
It's on board docs. Okay, well, while we're waiting for him to bring out the presentation, state statute requires that when you are going to put a ballot measure for a bond on the ballot, that you have a public hearing. So that is what tonight is for, is to meet that requirement. This meeting has been noticed twice publicly as required by law. It's been in the paper, it's been on our website, it's been on the public notice website. So everywhere it needs to be based on the Utah code. Yep, that'll work. I need technical help from the audience. Is that going to reach? It's pretty short. Is it not on board docs? Oh. I have to change my view. Okay, thank you. Okay. So we are here to talk about the 2020 bond election that will be on November's ballot. I think most everybody is aware of why this bond is being considered, but just as a review, this is going to be an $80 million bond for a partial rebuild of Timpview High School. It will rebuild the academic wing and south gym. And sorry, that XX should have been a $5 million with regards to the south gym. That is the cost for that piece of the rebuild. It includes a 2.5-year construction schedule to rebuild the south gym and the academic wing. Construction would start in March of 2021 after the election is over and after bonds are issued and all the design is finalized. Many people may have noticed that we already did start construction on the south gym, and that is in an attempt to get going on this project and get it moving as quickly as possible. It does include site drainage and soils remediation for the improved areas, and the newly built portions will be on seismic piers. Parking, playfields, and the Timpanoose Park at the south will be impacted during construction. And again, most of this was talked about last year when we were running our larger bond for the full rebuild, but the main reason we have to pursue this bond is for safety. After several years of accelerating deterioration of the south gym and academic wing, we are at a point where we kind of are left with no options other than to get this piece of the school rebuilt. It's on shifting unstable clay, and there's accelerated shifting in the last few years, as we noted in the last bond. There's a lot of large cracks throughout the buildings, evidencing the shifting and the pulling, and I think you as board members have seen a lot of that, and probably a lot of the public saw those pictures last year, so we didn't want to kill it this year with a lot of overkill on information. Not sure what happened there. Okay. We've had multiple professionals evaluate this problem. I think the last I heard, we had 8 or 9 engineers taking a look at this. We have state risk management taking a look at it. State risk management actually has come to a point with us that we were told we really have to do something with this wing because of the immediate dangers. And if we didn't do something about it, they would probably have to pull our insurance. So they had some fears of that particular building basically sinking the whole entire state pool. I don't know that it would sink it, but it would be a pretty big hit to the entire state pool for insurance. So we've been working with risk management to develop a plan that they are happy with, that they feel the students are safe while we're building, but to get that portion of the school taken care of and rebuilt and get those students in the most safe environment we can. Voter feedback back in 2019, after we tried to pass a bond to rebuild the entire school, most of the feedback that we received via some focus studies and some surveys was that there is support for a partial rebuild in order to mitigate this risk. The full rebuild was a little more than the public was willing to take last year, but our surveys indicate that this year they're in support of a partial rebuild. This is just a short quote from State Risk Management. Given what the district knows, it should make every effort to eliminate the structural threats that are present at Timpview for the safety of the students, faculty, staff, and community. And again, that's relating back to state risk management's decision that if we don't get something done and have a plan in place, that they will have to pull our insurance. So this is the big question most people want to know is what's the tax impact? These bonds would be issued as one bond sale. The tax impact peaks after 2 years, so taxpayers will feel an increase for the first and second year after the bonds are issued, and then after that, the amount of their tax that goes towards this GO debt will start dropping. The net property tax impact on an average home is $70 a year for this $80 million bond. The average home is $317,000. That is a number that we are provided by Utah County. It is in statute that we use that number when we are discussing the cost of this bond, so that's why we chose that number. And additionally, the code requires us to use that same average value when we're discussing business impacts. Despite the fact that the business average value may be higher, statute says we need to use that same amount as a home. So the net property tax impact on a business of the same value is $128 a year because they don't have the personal exemption on the primary residence. And just as an FYI, these estimates are a net number, so they reflect the cost of the new bond that's being offset by existing debt that is falling off. Just wanted to show everybody about 10 years worth of information on the cost of this bond. As you can see in 2022, which would be the first tax year impacted by the issuance of this bond, you see the $70 increase on the left for residential and the $128 increase on the right for business. The following few years, it's basically in neutral. We don't go up or down by much at all because of again, the layering effect of the different debts that we already have outstanding. And then in 2027 and after that, you can see that that payment starts falling off. So the impact of this bond is short-lived with regards to how long a taxpayer will be paying that extra amount. And again, those are based on a $317,000 assessed value. So one of the questions that has been asked, and something we do want to be transparent about, is if this bond should fail, what are our options? Because we have started construction. We're working on the South Gym already. If the voted bond does not pass in November, the board will be looking at doing a municipal building authority bond. The municipal building authority gives the authority to issue bonds without going to vote. You use a different levy. You have a different revenue stream to pay those rather than the GO debt levy. The capital levy would need to be used. So in the event that the bond does not pass, we would be looking towards a municipal authority bond. The first year's net impact is a little bit higher on those bonds because of the funding source, but then after that it drops off as well. I did invite Brian Baker from Zions Finance. Zions Finance, as you know, is our bond finance analyst. And I'm going to let him take just a moment to explain why there's a difference if the bond is the same amount, why there would be such a difference in that first year's payment. So he explains it a lot better than I can because he's the pro.
Good evening. Glad to see everybody. Just wanted to quickly explain, because as you look at other options, you know, someone might say, well, why are you even doing the election? What's the point if you could do this method also? The security for a municipal building authority bond is less secure than the general obligation bond pledge. So when you issue, not only would the district's own bond rating be lower, but you wouldn't get the AAA bond rating of the state of Utah, which the state has pledged to back all general obligation bonds issued by every public school district in the state. So thus your interest rate is higher, and so thus the cost of the bond is higher. The other difference, as Stephanie has mentioned, is that you have existing bonds that are being paid by your debt levy, and those pay off periodically over the next 20 years as that debt gets amortized. And so you could see from the slide a couple slides ago that 5 or 6 years into this new debt, that debt number starts to ratchet down because other debt is being paid off. And so that gets layered onto existing debt, whereas if you do a municipal building authority bond, which you don't currently have any of, you would issue and you would have 20 years of level amortization, and thus the initial impact is higher and more significant than the initial impact on the general obligation bond, especially from the net perspective. Happy to answer any questions about that structure. I think Alpine School District was in the newspaper about 6 months ago, where they had passed a large bond election, and as they got to the end of their spending, found that they weren't able to build a couple of the projects they had anticipated building simply because of cost escalations. And so the method that they used to finance the gap between what their voters had authorized and what they didn't have money for was a municipal building authority bond. And so they are used commonly in the state of Utah, especially by some of the larger school districts who have lots of projects to do. And sometimes instead of doing a $400 million bond in Jordan School District, if they just need to build a school or two, they might do a municipal building authority bond to cover that, $20, $40, $60 million, where that seems like a lot to us, but in their case, with their size, that's not.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So right now, a municipal bond rating is about 1.5, right? For a 30-year rate, it's like 1.5?
Yeah.
So if we did this, would it be like 1.6?
Yeah, so the district has traditionally, as shown up there, it uses about 20-year amortization, and over 20 years, the rate currently would be around 1.5 on the general obligation debt. You'd probably be looking around 1.65, 1.7 on a municipal building authority bond. So you take that number and you amortize it over 20 years on $80 million, and so that actually adds up to quite a difference in the amount of interest that you pay on the life of the debt.
Is it about $1 million? I think I looked through those sheets, and it was about $1 million.
It's a little over that, and so that's the difference between the two. And as pointed out, that it does make a difference initially and then over the 20-year term on the amount per household that would be going towards that.
So in essence, where we are sort of going, option A is put towards the voters, and because the state has asked us to fix the building. So option A is this, and option B is that. It's basically a choice of the lesser expensive or the more expensive. Is that correct?
Yeah, the most secure and cheapest funding mechanism that the district has available, and you only have 2 funding mechanisms available, this would be the second, is the general obligation bond. That gets you the lowest rate because it has the highest rating and is most readily accepted by the market, so you would thus have the lowest tax impact to your constituents.
But that takes the public saying, to get that advantage, it takes
Yes.
the public saying, yes, that's what we'd want to do. We'd like to pay less for this project.
Yes.
Great.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian, I appreciate that. Just a little bit of data so that the public is aware. The current district debt, we just closed our books for our last fiscal year, which is June 30th of 2020. We have about $102 million in outstanding debt. 86 million of that is from the 2014 bond authorization that built 5 schools. And about 15 million is a refunding of previous bonds. There was a time when we could refund bonds similar to refinancing your home, and so that's a refunding that we have. Our total legal debt limit as of June 30th is 415 million. So we've only got 102 million of that outstanding. So we've got 313 million available to us to legally get into debt. That legal debt margin is set at 4% of the fair market value within our district. So we have a lot of room as far as the legal debt margin is concerned. An $80 million bond will only take up about 1/3 of what we have left. Any other questions or comments?
Any questions for Stephanie Board?
Julie?
You said this in the very first part of your meeting, but can you talk a little bit more, explain what's happening with our insurance? What did State Risk tell us?
So State Risk, they actually came in and did a random review of our school, of Tempe High School, back when we were developing the facilities committee to discuss rebuilding it. So it was actually timed really quite well. And when they did that random walkthrough, they saw the structural issues and started working with us to say, where are we at on these? What's the impact? Are you watching them? And at the time, Mark Wheeler was working with them and has been for a few years. As we saw the settlement deteriorate even worse and accelerate, they finally came to us and said, we really have to do something about this. You either need to vacate the building and put in portables, the academic wing in the South Gym, either vacate it and put in 48 portables, I think is what we were talking about, or you need to go in, shore it up for the short term, or get the school rebuilt. And as you know, we tried to do the entire school last year. We thought that was the most financially sound approach. Didn't pass, so we are now going to say we need to get that wing rebuilt. We did look at moving those kids into portables, as you know. Logistically, it was going to be a very difficult thing to do, and it wouldn't have been taking care of the building at all if we just sat and waited. So they basically said, you got to get this rebuilt or we're going to pull your insurance.
Okay, and what happens if they pull our insurance?
If they pull our insurance, they would pull it for that school. They would still insure the rest of our buildings. If something happened while we were uninsured, the cost and the liability would be 100% on the district. Yep. So similar to if your insurance was gone on your house and something happened, you would not be covered. So pretty serious. They've been very good to work with us. It wasn't threatening in any way, but it was something that they were serious about, and they spent a lot of time with Mark. The state engineers spent a lot of time with Mark, with our other engineers, just working through best options and plans. And this is the best plan that you as a board believe we should pursue.
And what was the procedure? Like they said, we're going to pull your insurance in July. What's the procedure that we had to take to be allowed back into the school for the extended 2 years?
Right, so Mark Wheeler, who is no longer with us, he didn't die, he just doesn't work here anymore. He worked very, very closely with state risk and the state engineers to develop a plan. They worked through the whole entire plan of possibly having portables, possibly just shoring it up, possibly redoing a partial rebuild. A lot of time was spent in discussions, determining what the best options were and what we could do to mitigate that risk. State risk feels like the building needs to be taken care of, but while we're building, it's okay to have those kids in it because we're monitoring it daily. We've got devices throughout the school monitoring shifts, so they're comfortable with the students being in the building for the short term, but long term, they want to see it taken care of. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, like we have a number of engineers coming to the school on a
Yep.
regular schedule, checking
Yep.
all the devices, checking the movement.
Yeah, we have devices in many places in that school that are measuring movement, and that's being checked and monitored constantly.
And the state said that was okay.
Yes, they were comfortable with that. Okay.
So maybe just a couple questions that I know you know, but just to get it on the public record, is this just something that we decided, or did other engineering firms, how many, did just internal school district personnel look at the structure of the building, or did external people?
Oh, lots of external people have looked at this.
Like more than a half dozen?
More than a half dozen. I think we had 8 or 9 engineers. We've had a handful of contractors, construction contractors. We've had probably at least 3 architects look at it. Back when we were discussing doing a full rebuild, we had the facilities committee reviewing all of the work from all of those different professional firms that have looked at it and given us recommendations on how to proceed.
Okay, and so is this the same bond as the one that was voted down the previous year?
No.
What's the difference?
So the previous year was obviously much larger. It was $245 million. It was going to be for a full rebuild of Timpview plus Dixon Middle School and Wasatch Elementary. So this bond will not do anything with Wasatch. It will not do anything with Dixon. It is strictly a partial rebuild of the South Gym and the academic wing at Timpview High School.
And also, Also, when the last bond went up, we said Timpview is in terrible condition. Has there been a change in the condition from last fall even to now?
That would probably be a better question for our facilities person to answer if you were here, but I would say there hasn't been a large change. It's definitely not for the better. Nothing improves those conditions other than getting in and doing the work on it. Again, we're monitoring it. I think they've seen some minor shifts since then. Nothing so large that we need to panic, but
So the building's safe, but it.
it continues to
There were
deteriorate.
some fairly large
Yep.
changes. There was,
Yeah.
we worried about a bad winter, and then
Yeah, yeah. So
the
in-
academic wing sort of became urgent. We were looking at the
Yes.
south gym and the library before, and
Now the academic wing, we saw some shifting in the doorways during the bond last
Right.
year. We actually saw doorways that were free closing at one time, starting to be difficult to close. So there are still shifts happening in that school. It's not stopping. It's not something we can just ignore.
so maybe, and also feel free, maybe the superintendent, if we went to double sessions at Provo, could we do that?
Oh. I'll look back to those.
How much larger is Timpview than Provo?
About 400
About
students.
400 students.
So Timpview wouldn't fit into Provo to do a double session.
No, you would have to have completely different bell schedules.
So is there any other, so with the remediation of the site, is that because it's a terrible site to build on, or a bad technique was used to build the
No.
original school?
So that question gets asked a lot. Back in 1976, when that school was built, there was not, there were not requirements for pylons and pillars to be put underneath that school despite the soil condition. We are able to rebuild there now because of those additional construction means that will stabilize the school.
And if we change sites, that would mean we have to completely build a new school, and how much would a new school cost?
Well, since last year, I think some of the districts up north are paying upwards of $130 million for new schools, plus land. We did look into that, as you know, and there's not a lot of available land in the Timpview boundaries to be had. So it was something that was investigated and kind of ruled out.
So the least expensive thing to satisfy the state's demand is this partial rebuild. Otherwise,
Partial rebuild.
we'd have to build a new school somewhere else.
Yep. Or
So-
build a new one, but we tried that and it didn't go through, so.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, Steph, we're treating you as if you were Mark, so you're getting a ton.
I'm doing my best.
You're getting a ton of
I will never
questions.
live up to Mark, but I'll do my best.
Do you remember how much it was going to cost yearly for portables?
I don't. I think it was
2.5 million?
2.5 million,
Yeah, 2.5
plus
million.
a couple million to get them set up.
Yeah, and do you remember that they had that option where it would give us between 5 and 15 years, and how much that
Yes.
would be?
That was about 20 million, if I recall.
Yeah, about 20 million bucks. And so the city, if we pass this bond, we're going to be paying about 5 million a year, the city, as a
Correct.
total
Payments would be
amount.
around
That's-
5
That's how
million.
much we're going to pay on this bond. And so to put it off, is it correct to say, like, we'd be paying 2.5 million a year just to have the kids in portables? Kids would be stuck in portables, but
And
we're
we
still
still
going
have
to
to deal
have to
with
pay
it.
that 5 million for 20 years,
Yep.
no matter what. And the only other option was 20 million for between 5 and 15. They didn't know whether it would last 5 or whether it
Correct.
would last 15. They couldn't guarantee. And that works out to be, anywhere between 2 to
Yep,
a lot larger number.
Yep.
Just to postpone. Is
yep.
that
It would
correct?
have been about 20 million just to go in and shore up the walls, the
Yeah.
existing walls, and not do any rebuild. And they didn't know if it would give us 5, 10, 15 years. And that would be 20 million spent that would be demolished within 5, 10, 15 years when
So
it's
the-
time to rebuild.
So the only other options we had required potentially wasting huge amounts of money and not getting a new school and not getting a safe school. Okay.
Are we good? Any further discussion?
Okay, so part of the public hearing is to open up the podium for public input regarding the bond. We have our public hearing for other items a little bit later. This first public hearing section is strictly for bond. comments. So I don't know if Bonnie has any of those. If anybody has any comments about the bond and you haven't filled out a paper, it's
Okay.
over there. We'll give them a few
We
minutes.
have not received any requests to address the board regarding the bond. Is there anyone who would like to do so? Seeing that there is no public comment, I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing. And Board Member Bryson, I would invite you now to read the pro statement for the bond.
Okay. The Provo City School District is seeking $80 million to replace a portion of Timpview High School that has been irreparably damaged by the movement of the soil beneath the building. This bond will replace the south gym and the academic wing of the school and will implement a water mitigation plan that will eliminate the risk of this problem happening again in the rebuilt areas. During the spring of 2017, school officials noticed evidence of settling. Cracked walls, burst pipes, and a cinder block that fell through the ceiling of the library were all early warning signs that the school was structurally unsound. 9 different engineering and architectural firms were brought in to evaluate the school, and they all said that the problems at the school needed to be addressed immediately. Timpview's deteriorating state was noticed by the Utah Division of Risk Management. This state agency promotes safety and ensures schools. In early 2019, the division's director, Brian Nelson, cautioned the district and said that it should make every effort to eliminate promptly the structural threats that are present at Timpview High School for the safety of the students, faculty, staff, and community. When last year's bond failed and an excavation and examination of the soil beneath the school showed that the condition was worse than was previously believed, the Division of Risk Management explained that they would need to withdraw Timpview's insurance, an act which would render the school unusable. As a result, the district entered into an agreement with the Division of Risk Management where the district promised that they would immediately begin rebuilding the affected areas of the school and would have a constant monitoring on site over the next 2 years to ensure the safety of our children. This agreement and the resulting bond is the best choice for our students and the taxpayer. The alternative was to hold class in 40 portable classrooms. This would have displaced the majority of the school into a portable city and cost the taxpayers an additional $2.5 million per year until the building was reconstructed. Unlike most bond elections, the results of this vote will not determine if the project will go forward. Because of the urgency, the project has already begun, and the board has promised to use a lease revenue bond to pay for the construction if the bond fails. This means that the board will borrow the money at a higher interest rate to rebuild the school if this bond does not pass. So please vote for this bond because it will keep our children safe and will reduce the amount we end up paying in taxes.
Thank you, Board Member Bryson.
And I'd like to make a note that we did not receive any con statements from anybody in the community.
Thank you, Stephanie. And maybe just so everyone knows, prior to this meeting and over the last couple of weeks, every member of the board has had a chance to review this statement. And I am not aware of anyone who has any differences, and so we will move forward. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn the public meeting and convene the business meeting formally?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are now formally convened in the business meeting. We have concluded the public meeting. First item on our agenda for the business meeting is employee recognition. And Jason Cox, Deputy Superintendent, we'll invite you to come forward.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you for this opportunity to address the board. Tonight, we have the opportunity to recognize some of our employees and community members. It's always a great thing to be able to talk about something positive and to be able to say thank you to those who do such a great job here in the city of Provo. Tonight, I'm going to ask the people to stand as I read their name. We do have a video, and after the video, we'd love for you to go up and let the board members thank you for your work. We won't be able to shake hands, but we can at least say thank you. So, oh yes, a reminder to watch your feet as you cross in front of here because there is a cord. So our people who we are recognizing tonight are Suzanne Martinez, Linda Phillips, Brooke Ann Taylor, Karen Mogensen, and Liz Robles. Again, thank you to each of them.
Welcome to the 2021 school year. We are here at Student Services for the first Provo Award of the year. We're going to recognize Liz Robles.
On behalf of the Board of Education, we want to thank you for all you do. You're such a great face for our district and are just so helpful and knowledgeable, and we appreciate all that you do. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug, who nominated you to say a little bit more.
Thank you, guys.
Well, Liz is really an outstanding person all the time. She runs this department. She's the front door, and she just really takes care of everybody. In fact, people seek her out district-wide. Usually people walk in student services and look around and say, "Where's Liz?" Because they come looking for her help and her service because they know what they're going to get. They're going to get someone who's patient, someone who's knowledgeable, and someone who's kind. And all of us try to live up to that. This last summer, with all the changes we have to do with enrollment, registration, all our records, she's had to reinvent so many processes we took for granted. And on top of that, our PR department's been pushing out all of this communication, and so it all comes to Liz to translate into Spanish for our community, which she just so lovingly and passionately does because she wants all of our community members to know what's going on in Provo City School District. So it's a long overdue and an honor we could do over and over again, Liz, for being a Provo way, someone who really emphasizes and embodies this idea of welcome home. You're part of a family in Provo. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thanks, guys.
Morning, everyone. We're here at Centennial as a celebrations committee, and we're here to recognize one of our assistant principals who's a superstar here. Our assistant principals, we want to show them some love. They do a lot of great things, and as a celebrations committee, we want to give the ProVO Award to Brooke Taylor.
Thank you.
We're grateful for all that you do here, and we'd like to turn some time over to our school board member, Jennifer Partridge.
Thanks.
Congratulations. On behalf of the Board of Education, I want to thank you for all that you do to make Centennial a wonderful place to be and all the love that you show our students, and we really appreciate you.
Yeah, well, I think you know pretty clearly how much I've enjoyed working with you, and we talk with some regularity about all the great things you do, your work ethic, your positive attitude, your willingness to learn and grow, and above all else, how much you love our kids. And so for all those reasons and 1,000 more, I support the district and recognize you with the Provo Award because you do a great job and we're lucky to have you here, so thanks.
Thank you. I love being here.
Well, good morning and welcome to Westridge Elementary. We're a small celebrations committee. We're here to recognize 2 outstanding employees, our secretarial staff here at Westridge. As the start of the school year has been so peculiar and unique, these 2 have stepped up and done some amazing things, and they were nominated by their principal. Let's go on in and recognize them.
We just want to thank you for all that you do for Westridge generally, and we know this school year has been even crazier and more work for you, and we appreciate the smile you are to everybody who comes in. We can see it in your eyes. We can see it in your eyes, yes. And just the great communication that you have with everybody here.
So Karen and Linda are amazing. They are amazing secretaries. They do so much for this school, and they go unrecognized. They're like these superheroes that stay behind the mask and never reveal themselves. But they truly are the heart of this school. They are friendly, they are caring. You can go in any time of day, and there's this warmth in our office, and it means so much to me that they are the face of the school and that they are so caring. Through all of this COVID craziness, they have been positive and helpful, and I couldn't do this work without them. So I just want them to know how much I appreciate them, how much I appreciate you guys, and all you do for us. I'm so grateful.
Well, good morning and welcome to Spring Creek Elementary. A few of us on the Celebrations Committee are here to recognize another outstanding employee, Miss Suzanne Martinez, who teaches first grade. She's doing some extraordinary things and was nominated by her peer for those. Let's go into her classroom now.
So much. Ms. Martinez, we want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Education for all that you do for the students here at Spring Creek and for all the hard work you always give, but especially with this unusual school year. We're so grateful for you and all that you do. And we will be recognizing you at our school board meeting this next week.
Well, Suzanne, you're just so caring. I've worked with you for a few years now, and you always remind me of kind of the emotional part of this job and of caring for the students and not just getting wrapped up in everything we have to do, but she adds a personal touch, and it's really inspiring.
I wish I could hug you.
We'd invite you to please come up, and we'd love for each of you to be able to be thanked by our board members. We'll have you start on this end. Again, let's give them one more round of applause.
Thank you. You know what? I can see what Doug said, your smile. I can see it right there. Oh, thank you for all you do. Thank you guys so much. Seriously, I wish I could shake your hand. Sorry. But thank you. Exactly, and I can see it. I can see it. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for all your work. Thank you so much. It's Brooke Ann, right? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for all you do.
Let's have another round of applause for our Provo Awards. You know, I don't think that we can ever say enough and thank enough those who are employees of the Provo School District, wherever they may serve. It takes everyone doing their part to make the district run and operate smoothly and to give a high-quality education to the students. And so, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Christine, we'll turn the time over to you now for a media report. Provo Reads.
My eyes are smiling, my mouth is big and happy and smiling because I love doing this. It is my pleasure to meet with you every September and kind of talk to you a little bit about Provo Reads. This year, Provo Reads has made some changes to include other district-wide literary activities and events. The opportunities of developing that love of reading in the students has broadened. Provo Reads has become an umbrella to which these additional activities fall under. So we have our Provo Reads, and every year we choose a different genre or a theme, and this year it was really interesting. We have a Provo Reads Advisory Board. We get together, in November, and we had no idea about the pandemic coming our way, but we had decided to kind of simplify it and to really focus on empowering students to feel like they're winners in reading, no matter what they read. And so we just came up with Readers Are Winners, and it has fit so well with what we're doing this year and what we are challenged with. So what it is going to run, the program is going to be a little bit more condensed and smaller as far as length of time that we're holding it. So it will start September 21st and go through December 11th. The students are encouraged to submit online through Google Docs or in person an entry for book drawings that will be held every 2 weeks. It won't be once a month, it'll be more often with more books because we're consolidating it into a shorter period of time. The thing is, they can put their name into the drawing for anything that they read as a hard copy, an ebook, an audiobook, if they read to someone or if someone read to them. And so there's multiple opportunities for them to participate and be a part of a reading community. I think the thing that will be really interesting and fun for us is, I don't know about you, but when you meet somebody new and you're trying to get to know them a little bit better, one of the great conversation starters is to say, so tell me about what you're reading right now. And so we kind of took that into what we're going to be doing this year and asking the questions, so what are you reading? And you'll notice that the stuff that I handed out for you, the lanyards and the button that says, what are you reading? I'm hoping that will encourage you to start asking that question to those that you can come in contact with. You know, your friends, your colleagues, and the students that you will interact with throughout the year. And so, in answering that question, we thought, hey, let's kind of see what the librarians are reading right now. So we have a short video of all of the librarians but one. She was sick, wasn't able to do the video of what they're reading right at the moment right now. So we'll turn that time over to that.
Hey, my name is Mrs. Raines, and I'm the librarian at Timpanogos Elementary, and I am currently reading When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit, which is a book I remember from when I was young. I saw it in the library, and I wanted to revisit it. It's a story about a girl who's forced to leave Germany during World War II with her family because they're Jewish, and just their adventures after they left in Switzerland and France, and it's a great story.
So as you can see, we have some pretty amazing librarians, and you got to kind of meet them that way. So I gave to you a little journal of when I'm challenging you and others to start writing down the books you're reading. And write down whether you like them, whether you don't, and is there any life lessons that you learned from those books. And we're challenging the students to do the same. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing for Provo Reads. And then I just wanted to kind of blow over the, kind of just let you know how wonderful the librarians are. Once we had started with the COVID shutdown, our librarians actually went through a new library training. We have Follett that basically is our library management system, and we were able to upgrade it without any cost to the district to Destiny Discover, and now all of the students can access all of the library books in our district on a device, and they can actually put a hold on any books that they want, and the librarians deliver them to their homeroom. Now that's room service. And in October, you will be able to download an app. We've already started advertising it, and they'll just have an app on their phone. They can go to their school, and they can use that app to download books. Right now you can do ebooks and digital books, but in October it'll be able to also use that app to do hardbound books. And so I feel like that's just been a win-win and something that I don't know if we would have done it that way, without the push of the COVID. So I feel like that was a great thing for us to move beyond the walls of our library and move on to something new that's more accessible to all of the students in our district. We also do Battle of the Books, and Jennifer knows how wonderful this is. We've been doing Battle of the Books for a couple of years. We've been doing it for quite some time in schools, and then we started doing district competition. We usually do it in April. And I cannot express to you the jump in readership we've had with the Battle of the Book program. Students love it. It's not for your high reader, avid readers. It's for every reader, because in the competition, they have books for all multiple levels of reading abilities within the competition. So all students have the opportunity to participate in it. It's for 3rd and 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade. Our junior highs do their own type of the battle books, where the students are able to read books that are more relevant to them. And then at Timpview High, we have Name That Book, where the students, the English department, and the library collaborate together in picking out books that they want to compete against. And Provo High wanted to jump on it this year so that we could compete between the two of them. Depending on how things go, we are doing Battle of the Books. We found a way to do it in the schools safely without being in big groups. If things change in the spring, hopefully they do, then we will go ahead and do a district competition, but we will wait to make that decision as time comes. And so that is also part of Battle of the Books. We also have Utah Beehive Books. Every state has a consortium where librarians and students gather together and pick out their top books that represent their state. I am part of the Children's Library Association of Utah, and I'm also on the board for Utah Beehive Books. And so this is just a really fun thing that our students are involved in. Those books are picked by librarians within the state of Utah. And then we reintroduce those books to the students. They're new every year, newer books that we use in the core curriculum. And we are always introducing new books that are on multiple different genres. And then the students get to vote on who are the winners for our state. Those authors and illustrators do come to Utah and receive those awards, but the children, the students in our state have a voice in what they think are the best books for Utah. And so that is also something that falls under Provo Reads. So just like everyone else, the librarians in our district have had to learn new ways to reach out to our students. We agree that this has been an opportunity to look outside of the typical four walls of our library to connect students to new ways of reading for pleasure. We can keep moving forward. We can keep moving forward and finding more ways to spread the joy of reading, because that is our main goal with Provo Reads, is for students to be lifelong readers and read for the pure joy of it. Do you have any questions or comments or anything that I need to answer? Okay.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. This is a bright spot, I think, in our district and is unique to our district, and that's why I love it so much.
I just want to say I appreciate you going through all of that. You're doing some things that I don't know that I realized. That's a long list, and you're busy, and like McKay, thank you.
You're welcome. This has been a delight. Thank you.
Okay, we have now reached the point in our business meeting where the board is ready to take public input. I have received 9 requests to address the board, and I remind you that everyone will have, I think it's 3 minutes, Bonnie, is that right? To come and address the board. Would invite you to remain respectful of those who are speaking. And if there are those who are going to be saying exactly the same thing and not adding any additional or new information, I would invite you to consider letting the words of those who have come before represent you also, although I will not prevent you from coming up to speak if you wish. First, we'd be pleased to hear, and I will apologize now if I can't read your handwriting. You've got beautiful handwriting. I have trouble figuring the name out. Sarah Groneman, I hope that's right. And please, if you would state your name and your address.
My name's Sarah, to address with the board. One of the very first concern, and probably my biggest concern, is a comment that was made previously that was stated, "We are committed to our teachers." That is heartbreaking as a parent to hear. I want you to be committed to the children. That is your job as a school board member. The children are your first priority. I understand that safety is big, but as you have seen the numbers, they are very low. Elementary kids need to be in class. It is critical. I have a first grader that reads on a second grade level. The information that he has been receiving from school, he will not do. I sat down with him the other day, and it's because he is getting things that are saying, what does this letter sound like? Unfortunately, I spoke to his teacher, and she told me that there are kids in his class that know 12 letters of the alphabet. She cannot move forward with the kids that are advanced because there are other kids that have lost so much time from last year. They cannot lose any more time. My children and the children of the parents in Provo School District need to have their kids taught. That is your first priority as a board member. Another concern that I have is also was something that was addressed previously. The concern about not having enough drivers, lunch, social distancing, things like that. I don't know if you guys have kept record of the kids that have left the Provo School District, but myself, I know a lot of people that have moved their children to either a private school or a local school district. I have a really hard time thinking that these teachers, if kids come back, that they are going to have a full classroom. It's not going to happen with the numbers, at least that I have seen, the people that I have talked to. We are losing kids from our school district. And unfortunately, it's a lot of the parents that are involved that are moving their kids. A lot of the parents that are not super involved, they are doing the best they can with their kids, like me. I am involved, I am very involved with my kids, but I am only one person. I have 5 kids in school right now. I know a lot of people have that same situation, but our kids are losing what they have already learned, and they are not gaining a thing. One thing I will beg of you, please don't punish those kids that want to go back to school because there are parents that don't want to send their kids. These other parents have a different option. There are options for everyone. Please don't punish those that want to go back.
Thank you. I now invite Lisa Benson to come forward and address the board.
Hi, my name is Lisa Benson, and I actually do also work at Dixon Middle School, but I want it to know that I am a parent and a teacher. Right now, some of the things that I am concerned about is that with my own students at Dixon, I'm only receiving about 30% of the online assignments. Now, other teachers are receiving more of those online assignments, but some of the problems that I have already encountered this year, I just found out today that one particular student doesn't even have internet at home, and we don't have any solution but to pass that on to you and hope for the best. I don't know why that wasn't discovered before, but it happens. And last spring, I only had, well, I had a good 25% of students that never logged on. One individual that I was trying to help last spring, her internet was so slow that I couldn't even do a one-on-one Zoom call with her. And so I did drop a packet off to her house because she had not been picking it up, and no contact, of course. And she didn't end up doing any of it. And so, well, yes, I worry about my own kids. I have 2 in 6th grade and 1 that's a junior. I also worry about the kids that I teach at Dixon that don't have some of the same opportunities as my kids do. With my 6th graders, last spring, they kept telling me over and over again, and I finally heard it from their actual friends, that they did more work than any of their friends. At this point, one of their friends has moved to a different school so that he can go 5 days a week, and another one is considering such a thing. When I was listening to the board to have the discussion about secondary schools, it was always just secondary schools, and I'd like to point out that middle school is not high school. It's very different. Some of the needs that I have seen in particular is that right now we are teaching every 7th grader how to do online school on a consistent basis. As you know, because we did not have grades count, many of the middle schoolers that I teach, I overhear still hearing them say that it's not going to count or they're not willing to do the work. I would like you guys to make a stand that grades will count to help encourage those students to actually do their work. And then, have you guys sent out a teacher survey to get the opinion? And last thing is just that I want you to know that we are already doing online school and we are already doing teaching. We're doing both. We are ready at any point, at least in my class. To transfer.
I now invite Karen Willis to come forward and address the board.
Hi, I'm Karen Willis. I'm just here to say that we're all hoping and praying that the district will move through the phases, the sooner the better. Distance learning isn't motives of others. I'm one of the most hands-on parents I know. Ask anyone who knows me personally. Right, guys? I have a master's degree, yet I stay at home with my kids. And we're blessed that our financial situation is such that I'm easily able to sit down and assist my extremely quick and bright 4th grader with all of his distance learning. I'm right there alongside him the whole time. So this is like best case scenario. But aside from the frustrations we're experiencing with distance learning, which I'll get to later, what I can't provide for my son are the skills that are part of the classroom culture, because I can't simulate that kind of environment at home for him. No matter what kind of a supermom I could be, not to toot my own horn, but I just can't simulate skills he learns from in-person learning at school things are said in a different way, using different terminology, coming from someone else's mouth, in their words, in the teacher's words. There are other skills like patience, hand raising, manners, being aware of others, waiting your turn, the classroom unity and camaraderie that you feel from being together, being part of something that's bigger than just yourself. Those are things he's missing out on, that he's only getting partly. And it wasn't always the case, but at this point, I'm far more worried about the emotional health of my son than I am for his physical health. Not that physical health is not important to me. I've got a mom that's extremely high risk. My sister had COVID. It was a very intense experience, to say the least. And yet, here I am, and I've carefully considered, and I still think that going back or moving through those phases as quickly as possible is the lesser of two evils. The continued feelings of isolation I'm seeing have me extremely concerned. Kids are in tears, there's communication issues with teachers, and I don't want to have to bug the teacher with one more email. An important observation I've made from the distance learning experience we've had so far is that the declining emotional health of our children starts to affect their ability to learn and to care about learning. They become so despondent, they have no motivation. They just don't have the wherewithal. Please consider that physical health is only one part of the equation. From what I keep hearing, the main reason why Provo's doing things differently is that the BYU students aren't being careful, and they're not. But I can't help but think it's not fair that our children pay the price for that. These BYU kids, they have way more ability to meet their social emotional needs and fill their buckets. Our kids, especially our K through 6 kids, they don't have social media accounts. They don't have a driver's license to get around. They fill their buckets at school.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time to address us. Annie Groh, would you please come forward?
Hi, I'm Annie Groh, and I just want to start by asking Lisa when you think that you would be ready to start. Would it be September 6th or September 14th or September? I think it's important to get teacher feedback. I think it's important to get teacher feedback specific to our district. We recently had a petition that was signed within 2 weeks that gained almost 700 signatures of people, taxpayers, parents in the community who are saying that they want an option for their kids to be back in school. I have to say that the conversation feels a lot different tonight than it did when I attended the meeting a few weeks ago, and that's really encouraging. It's really encouraging to hear that you guys are saying that you want to move to phase 2 soon, and I hope we can do that. I just want to address that and I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Alex Judd, and yes, Todd McKee. When you guys were speaking, you kept talking about the risk, and I think that's very important, but I think there should be, like we've been saying, someone also representing the risk of having our kids not be educated. And we all know that. We all know that's a risk, just like we all know COVID's a risk. But we are willing to talk about the details of the COVID risk, and they are some details of the COVID risk. We're not giving as much time to the risk of kids being out of school, in my opinion, from observing this meeting and the last meeting. Maybe you are in private, but as far as these meetings go, I don't feel like enough is given to the risks of children. And as of right now, people that are not high risk have a less than 1% chance of fatality. And we know that there are more risks than that, but as far as making decisions for keeping kids out of school, that and hospitalizations is the reason why we shut down for 14 days in the first place. And I just want to say that kids who don't learn how to read, by 3rd grade, 75% of them will not learn how to read by the time they graduate high school. And that determines their job prospects, that determines their mental health, that determines their substance abuse, it determines their social behavior. That's 75% of kids who don't learn how to read by 3rd grade versus a less than 1% chance. Again, I'm not saying that that doesn't matter. All I'm saying is we need to constantly have in the forefront what we're risking. I know you guys have also received a lot of pressure for the counter, and like we said, there are options for people to opt out, including dual enrollment. And I saw that there is a lot of negative feedback, but there are the options to opt out if you do not feel comfortable sending your kids to school. So please give us this chance to send our kids to school if we would like. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Elder.
My name is Elizabeth Elder. Can you hear me? I just wrote down a few thoughts of mine so I could be a little bit more coherent. And as I'm looking at the school board, I'm so grateful for what you guys do for our schools. I'm grateful for our superintendent. I'm grateful for all the work that goes in the background. I know it's a ton of work. But as I'm looking at the school board, I'm also noticing, I don't know if I see a lot of representation, like we're trying to homeschool these moms who have come up here. So I'm just gonna give you a little background. So I have a sophomore at Timpview, I have an 8th grader at Centennial, and I have 4 kids at Rock Canyon, 6th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and kindergarten. I taught elementary school before I had children. I volunteer constantly at the schools before COVID, serving in the PTA and being in the classrooms, working individually with the students, especially those who are at high risk. I currently substitute at Rock Canyon Elementary when I can, which is not very often because my children are home on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. As you can see, I have a great love of our schools and of our community. I also love our teachers, our parents, and the people that we work with here in Provo. Here are just a few of my concerns that we're facing. This hybrid model that we are doing right now is lacking consistency for our children. My 2 oldest kids, they see their teachers 1 day a week. My son didn't even have school yesterday because it was Labor Day, so he will go to school 1 day this week. His grades matter. He is in high school. He has to prepare for college. His grades matter. In March, when we were out of school, my husband was also home working. He spent 3 hours every single day sitting with him, relearning SM1, biology, AP World History. This is what he was doing, and I focused on our 5 other children. My husband is now back teaching at BYU, and I have to do this. My teenager is falling through the cracks because I am working with these kids who have to learn how to read, and I'm a teacher. So I am so scared for those community members who do not have the skills to be doing this at home. I am falling through the cracks. This is challenging. This is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I'm worn out, I'm exhausted, and mentally wondering how I'm going to manage this for a whole year. What about those parents who work full-time, or parents who work outside the home, or kids who do not have the internet? What about them? I'm worried about me and my mom's friends' abilities to work through this mess, but what about those who cannot even face the day? I'm worried about the mental health of not only the children, but the parents as well. I am so glad that you're looking at going back to school in the next couple of weeks, but I agree, as a teacher, I know those teachers can whip out those lessons plans tomorrow. So if we can push this forward, we'd be so grateful. There are a lot of concerns over this, and I'm afraid that our voices aren't being heard.
Thank you. Christy Giblin.
Hello, my name's Christy Giblin, but I teach here in Provo at Dixon Middle School. I'd like to offer a different perspective than what we've heard already. While I do appreciate the concerns about students being in school every day, I feel like we can't ignore some of the risks that are involved. My classes, I teach band, are 40 to 60 kids. There's no possible way to social distance that if we are all there where we have to split the class in half and half work with an aide. We talked about teacher input. I'm a little offended by the idea that we are just asking for a guess at what teachers are thinking when there has not been an effort made to find out what teachers are thinking. There hasn't, I agree with people that there hasn't been a survey. I would be really curious about that too, rather than just hearing a guess about it. Because I know that there are a lot of teachers who are concerned, but who felt like the district had this managed with a hybrid plan. And also at the last meeting, there were very specific data points given based on the metrics of community spread about when we would change models. And I feel like right now, it's just, well, we don't like it, let's change it. I would rather see decisions made on specific data. I know that case counts in Utah County are climbing, and Utah County now has the majority of cases in the state. I would say that that is not a decline in community spread. I do agree with these parents that, yes, it would be great to have kids in school all the time, but not at the risk of health and safety. I have asthma that's pretty severe. If I catch this, it will be drastic. I have students with the same problem. I had a student who lost a grandmother this week to COVID. Well, it was last week, sorry, I forget, we're into a new week now. And that had a huge emotional impact. So the emotional impact of not being in school is great, but so is the emotional impact of knowing that you've spread COVID to friends and family, and that students are losing family members over this. I think there's a lot to consider on both sides, but I would prefer to see decisions made on data, not anecdotal evidence. I would hope that the community would want this bad enough that they would take greater responsibility for reducing spread. And I think some people are, but we're also seeing community pages where people are encouraging each other to not get their kids tested because they don't want to have to deal with being quarantined. And then we have those kids in our classrooms that could be spreading the illness to everyone. I think it is possible to get the community spread down to a point where we can open full-time, but we need the community to be serious. We need them to stop having large social gatherings. We need them to stop having tantrums over masks. And we need to have the data to open schools, not just anecdotes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lacey Forston.
Hi, my name is Lacey Forston. My kids go to Wasatch and Centennial. I'm here to please urge you to listen to the very concerned and quite frankly desperate parents you represent, as well as recommendations from the CDC, and send all of our kids back to school 5 days a week. I was so happy when you, the school board, listened to the results of the parent survey and decided to return to school full-time with an online option for those who needed or wanted it. The entire plan was pulled out from underneath of us. The new hybrid plan didn't seem to make sense, since those who are most vulnerable to COVID, the staff and the teachers, would still be getting the same amount of exposure by seeing all the children throughout the week. It would only lessen exposure for children who are already far less likely to get very sick and or die from COVID than the flu that we face every year. Plus, it won't even really accomplish that, since a teacher who is exposed to a student who gets it in their class will undoubtedly see both halves of their class before the incubation period, before symptoms set in, thus exposing all the kids in the entire class to it during that time period regardless. I was baffled by this move by the district, as it seemed we fret and fraught over how to make up our one snow day last year. But now, only 3 weeks into the school year, my kids have been forced to miss 9 days of in-person instruction in school. Consequently, because of the hybrid model, I have a child with just 2 kids in his class. My other child has 6 kids in her class. Just as too many kids in a class present problems with learning and teaching, so does too few. I have a child with autism in secondary school who cannot have his 504 personal aide hired for him, as such an abbreviated schedule of only 10 hours a week does not lend to a job any dedicated person would want. It is not the school's fault. They've done their best. They've provided him someone temporarily, but he is struggling immensely because of it. And online learning just doesn't work for him, period. And it doesn't really work for my elementary schoolers either. Children are resilient. They can do masks all day. They can even sit behind power shields, even though it blocks my daughter's view of the board. But they cannot get the same education they need and deserve from only receiving 36% of the face-to-face instruction they used to receive in a week. Please let all students return to school 5 days a week, starting next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea Hoops.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Hoops. I live at 498 Vintage Drive in Provo, Utah. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all of the school board for being here. I know this has been a rough year and a lot of big decisions, so I appreciate your work and your effort. I'm sure many of you didn't know what you were signing up for, so thank you for being here. Thank you to all the comments that have come before. After listening to your comments and parent comments, class learning is best, and that's where we want to be. Todd McKee said our struggle is balancing safety and education, and I want to say that we can't let the cure be worse than the virus. I think that we need to grossly reconsider what safe means, particularly with children, but also with teachers as well. I ran the numbers in Utah today based off of KSL. The mortality rate in Utah is 0.8%. So that means the survival rate in Utah is 99.2. And that includes all the high-risk individuals. KSL considers a high-risk individuals if they are over 65 and have a considerable pre-existing condition. If you take the high-risk individuals out, their survival rate is 99.94. If you take high-risk individuals out, people that have died in Utah is 33. I ask you if 99.94 recovery rate, and that's for people that get the disease. That's not all Utah. That's people that get the virus. If 99.94 isn't safe, what is safe? 50% of the people that get the virus have no symptoms at all. 98% have no significant problem with the disease. 98.5% in Utah are not hospitalized. In Utah, as a whole, there haven't been any spikes returning to school. And I ask if 99.94 of cases are recovering, how much weight do we even need to put into case numbers?
Thank you. I hope I get this name right. Is it Caitley McKay? If I didn't get that right, I apologize.
Catrice McKay, a lot of what I wanted to say has already been said, so I'll just say the few things that, watching the meeting today, one big thing I noticed was that Monday is a huge issue for those who are on Monday and Wednesday. They're losing like 50% of their education on too many weeks, with the Monday holiday. Todd McKee talked about the 3 or 4% increase in quarantine numbers, and I just don't think that number is meaningless in regards to if we don't know how many actually got it. Quarantining numbers, for example, nobody else had it, and he didn't have any. It didn't affect him at all. He got to watch a lot of golf. But the problem with that is that if we're looking at those numbers, it's just not a good indicative number. I like the last speaker, how she gave specific. We need to look at the actual who's dying, who's having problems in that regard. So just talking about quarantine numbers doesn't help us anywhere. And we should be able to give out specific numbers. How many numbers are at each school? There's no legality in not being able to give out those numbers. And the question that we'd be having to look at, that it would highlight people at the school and they would know who they're talking about. But these kids know if someone's missing for 10 days, they're already being talked about. So it's still not giving names, but giving numbers is important. We need to be more transparent on that. A couple interesting things happened today. I went and got breakfast at Einstein Bagels and had a high school kid from Timpview check me out. I'm like, oh, she knew my daughter and said something, and she's working a ton because she says she's learning nothing in school, so she wants to make lots of money. Like, we're gonna be losing these high school kids to minimum wage jobs. I mean, she should be getting ready for college. I just paid for 6 AP tests for my daughter. She's doing 6 AP classes at Timpview. How is she even supposed to pass those tests? That's what I was like. How are you supposed to pass those tests when you're in school 2 times a week and pass 6 AP tests? I have I'm worried about the gap becoming wider with these, especially the grade school kids with their reading. I have the blessing of putting mine to private, so I did that. But I'm really worried about all those who can't, who have working parents that cannot work with them, where I can work with my children. So many can't. They speak other languages, or they are working and not able to put the time with their children, lack of internet. The gap's just gonna become wider for those people. It's gonna become wider for them in what they can do in their future opportunities in college and education, and it'll affect their whole life. What else I want to say? I think that's it. I hope that we can get these kids back to school and that we can give that option. The talk of risk is talking a lot. Other people's risk management is being put on us, and I think that the parents should be able to assess their risk for them and their children.
That was the last request I had from any member of the public to address the board. I would like to thank you for your thoughtful responses. I would also like to thank you for the respectful manner in which you presented yourselves and conducted yourselves. Thank you. This is undoubtedly a difficult decision. There's a lot of emotion, and there are a lot of contrasting and competing facts and details. One of the great challenges in reviewing data and making decisions is that how a question is framed and how the data is used can often determine the outcome. So thank you very much for being thoughtful and presenting your information. Is there any further comment from any member of the board? Seeing not, we will close public comment. And again, thank you for taking the time to be here with us. And I would just like to assure you that please do know that we take very seriously the input of the patrons. We take it deep. We take that very seriously. We seriously evaluate it. Sometimes we may not all arrive at the same conclusion at the same point in time, but that does not mean that we are not as deeply concerned about seeing things as you are. I think, as you heard in our discussion, that as a board, we are deeply committed to getting back to normal as quickly as we possibly can and as safely as we possibly can for everyone involved in the educational enterprise. Let's move on to the business items. And Jason, we'll invite you to come forward and talk about LEA-specific licenses. Maybe you can introduce that first, explain that to us, and then any questions from the board before we move to take action.
You bet. Thank you for this opportunity. So LEA-specific licenses, the state went through a process of changing their license system this last year. Local education agencies can approve people to be able to teach in their system if they have not been granted a specific license by the state. So we have a group of people who we have some positions that are very difficult to fill. Some of them are kind of interesting positions, but in trying to find people who are actually licensed in those areas, we have a hard time. There's a very limited number of people who are in this kind of category, but we bring to you tonight a list of people to approve to be granted an LEA-specific license, and that is a part of the state requirement to bring them to our local board and have you approve that list of people to then be recommended to the State Board of Education for their approval. And so the list is included tonight with a procedure that we put in place as a school district based on the new changes to the licensing policies for the state.
Are there any questions from the board for Jason about approval of the LEA-specific licenses?
Jason, this is the new system. It used to be like an ARL, right? Now this is a specific, okay, just checking. I just want to make sure I was on the right page.
Yeah, the LEA-specific has existed. The next level of licensure where people weren't fully licensed or were working on their license has changed quite a bit. ARL went away. And so you'll see on this list, there's actually a group of people who have been LEA-specific license holders for a period of time. I'll give you an example really quickly. We have someone who taught math at a university for years, and went through the process of getting licensed with the state of Utah. And for some reason, they wouldn't recognize some of their courses because of age. And so they'd only give them a certain level of math education endorsement. So with that in mind, this person can teach calculus, but doesn't have the license to do so. And so we come to you to ask for that LEA-specific license to say that we agree or we believe that they can, that they have the skills to do so.
Jason, have you found that this new process is more rigorous and leads to a more qualified hire?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, going back to the question about ARLs, in the past few years, out of our 840 to 850 teachers, we usually have had about 50 to 60 who have been in the ARL process. With the licensing change, we have a much smaller number who are working on their license. And in many ways, with the combination of the change with the economy, with COVID, those kinds of things, we've had a lot of people return to education also. So we have a lot fewer people in this field who are actually not fully licensed than we've had in the past.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion? Oh, Keith?
Jason, can you give us some idea how many of these we normally deal with? I know this is a new process, but how many of these do we normally deal with on an annual basis?
Yeah, great question. So we have, I believe on your list, we have 5 people that we have traditionally given an LEA license year to year. Again, another example of this, a person on this list, and not getting terribly specific, but they graduated from a university outside of the country. The university was that country's university, and it has since changed so dramatically that they can't even provide records from that person having gone to school there. So without them being able to get that level of qualification to be granted, the state won't recognize them as being a license holder, but to be able to watch them teaching in the foreign language that they teach for us, there's no question that they went to teachers college and graduated, and they were successful teaching for many years in their home country before coming to teach a language in ours. So again, that's one of the people that we have been granting an LEA-specific license for a number of years.
You keep referring to a list. There isn't one in our
It's in the study session notes, yes.
I apologize.
There you go. Oh, there you go. Sorry, thank you. Great.
Any additional questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the LEA-specific licenses.
Motion by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Board Member Rash. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Seeing none opposed, the motion passes unanimously. Item B, approval of the 2020 bond election pro statement. Is there any further discussion by the board on the statement? I think we all had plenty of time to review that over the last few weeks. Is there a motion to formally approve the 2020 bond election pro statement?
So moved.
Motion by Board Member Jensen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hall. Any additional discussion?
I thank Nate for writing that.
With your help.
And just a note that there is still one requirement to review pro-con statements and give equal time for comment, which will be at the October meeting. Again, we had no con statement, so people are obviously welcome to come to the October meeting. It's not a public hearing, it's just a regular meeting, but it is another state requirement. We'll have to meet in October.
Thank you, Stephanie. There's a motion on the table. All in favor of the motion, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Seeing no one opposed, the motion unanimously passes. We will, as I discussed in the study session, we have moved item C to our next board meeting. Item D, approval of the possible Phase 2 movement for the elementary schools and a target date for the secondary schools. Is there a motion first?
So moved.
Board Member Bryson,
We need to
What-
be more
what
specific
specifically
on
you
this.
might want to make the motion.
I don't know, because it's not written
Well,
down. Normally I just
yeah,
read
I think
stuff.
we
Maybe
can come
we-
up with something.
Can you be specific about dates and?
How about you do it, Rebecca, because I need it all written out for me.
Okay, how about this? I move we approve possible elementary only Phase 2 target date of September 21st with a possible secondary Phase 2 move target date of October 5th. And I also move that we give parents a certain amount of notice to know for sure. I don't know how much, 5 days notice to know for sure? I mean, that's our target date, right? So we want to let them know with a certain amount of time that it's going to for sure happen. So is 5 days a good amount? I don't know what you guys think.
Is that,
Any other, so
I guess maybe that was more discussion.
that's our motion? That's the motion? Any discussion about that motion? Is there a second first, though?
I'd say we could do the motion with everything except maybe the notice of
Yeah.
time, and we can discuss that, but not make it part of the motion.
So
Yeah.
would you be willing to amend your motion to
Sure.
drop the part about that last end part?
Sure, I amend the motion. I move to approve a possible elementary only Phase 2 target date of September 21st and a possible secondary only Phase 2 target date of October 5th.
Is that motion, is there a second for the motion?
Does that make sense?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Board Member, is that Board Member Jensen or?
Nate.
Oh, that was Nate. Board Member Bryson. Any further discussion on the motion?
I think we can talk about what Rebecca was saying about the communication to parents. I think that's something that's definitely important. And going along with what Julie brought up, giving the numbers, if we decide to move forward with this because of the declining numbers, giving parents as much information as possible to make that decision whether or not they want to send their kid to school or not. I think that we need to be very clear about those numbers.
I think that's good counsel and advice to get information out as quickly as we possibly can. So
I think
parents-
that communication piece, so our data has always been squishy a little bit because we said we're looking at a number of factors. These are the things we think are important, but we always reserve the right to make a decision otherwise. That we were looking at these different things and we're looking at these other things. To me, the only reason not to open is if we have significant numbers of staff that are out on the 21st. So but that needs to be communicated. And so we need to be able to communicate those numbers of how many staff members are missing from our schools. And I don't think it needs to be part of the motion, but if we could, sort of by the nod of a head, direct our administration to say the communication of how many cases are in our school and how many people are missing from our school on our website is just critically important to our community to know. Because to me, that would be the only reason not, for whatever reason, to not have, especially our elementary students, because for all the reasons that were said in different things, we've got a lot of things going on, but that would be the only reason that we would not, I'm assuming.
If there is no further discussion, I'll call for the question on the motion. All in favor of approving the motion as stated by Board Member Nielsen indicate with aye.
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 The motion passes unanimously. And I think it's important that we, Board Member Jensen made some important observations that we need to consider as we are moving forward. And Keith, if you'll make sure that staff, Jason, or Todd, Jason, Alex, that we look at those.
We'll do that. Caleb has already prepared a release that will go out to everyone tonight, now that the motion has been passed, and he'll get that out. And I'll work tomorrow morning with Jason and company to make sure we've got a clear picture of those metrics, and we'll post that as an important criteria for finalizing this decision.
Can I add, I think it's really important we communicate to our parents that this is, we can go back too. So it's not, oh yay, we're moving to the next phase, we're definitely going to continue on this path. It is all up to us to keep ourselves healthy, to follow all the guidelines that we've been asked to follow outside of school as well. But if we need to, we will have to go back to phase 1. So let's act accordingly.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you bringing that up. I think it's important to remember that it can go both ways.
May I comment on that as well, Jim?
Yes.
I also just want to remind people that Jennifer's comment is very important because, as McKay pointed out earlier, we don't have a lot of control over the contact tracing process that the health department goes through when a case is reported in our schools. And so we don't have a lot of control on whether we have to quarantine kids or shut down schools, et cetera. So I just want to echo Jennifer's comment. It's very important that we, as a community, do our best to control the spread to keep our kids in school.
Good, thank you. The next item we have is approval of the consent calendar. The consent calendar is board minutes, board meeting minutes. We've got meetings from August 11th and August 25th, personnel reports and data, financial reports, and other business of the district. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
And I second.
Motion by Board Member Hall, second by Board Member Rash. Any additional discussion on the consent calendar? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Seeing no one opposed, the motion passes unanimously. We'll turn some time over now to Board Member Jennifer Partridge for a Board Member report.
Thank you. Well, first, I wanted to thank everybody who came tonight, but they all just left. So hopefully they hear this later. But I want to thank them. I want to thank everybody who has emailed us, called us, those I know who are watching online right now and being engaged in the process. I recognize that part of that engagement is because there are hot button issues right now, and that makes it difficult for us as leaders. But overall, I'm glad that people are engaged, and I hope when there aren't as many hot issues that we still have a lot of community engagement. But we are grateful for that. And someone said earlier tonight, I feel like our voices aren't being heard, and I just want people to know that your voices are heard. We might come to different conclusions than what voices you expressed individually, but your voices are heard. And for me personally, hearing from people throughout our district on both the whole spectrum of opinions, it just helps to paint a picture of what's happening for our families, for our teachers, and gives us more information to make our decision with all the other information we're weighing. So I do appreciate that. I did want to report on a couple of things that I'm involved with as a school board member. So the first is with the foundation. The foundation is our charitable aspect that we get donations, and then we help support programs in our district. We were not able to do the fundraiser we normally do around Easter time because of COVID, but we are working hard to support our students and meet needs. We've been able to get several donations from big community partners that have allowed us to support our families who do not have internet access, that we can give them hotspots and be able to provide that for them. And we are grateful for those community partners that are doing that. And we're also moving forward on restructuring a few things with our foundation so that we can bring in more of our community members who can support us and engaging them more in what the foundation is doing. And so I'm really excited about the leadership that's happening in the foundation right now and the direction we are trying to go with that. I also work with Provo Kindness, and that has had to change a few things that we've been focusing on, because one of our main things we do is kindness clubs in the schools. And in the fall, every September, October, we hold a retreat for our kindness club leaders. And obviously that's going to look different this year, but it's been really good to be able to counsel together and see what our schools really need. We do feel that there is a need right now in our schools for more understanding, for more compassion, for more kindness, as there are issues in our whole community that can divide us if we let it. It can cause us to lead to judging one another, someone who might have a different opinion than you. That's happening as adults, but it also affects our kids and is happening with them too, we know. So we're working right now with our schools to see what support they need, that we can help them teach our kids about compassion and understanding and creating atmospheres of kindness. Some of them are coming with ideas not only in the schools, but how to do that in their own homes too, since they are doing things more at home as well. So that's been really great. Another aspect of Provo Kindness is we are now, well, not we as a district, but Provo Kindness is now also moving to a citywide level, and that is going to be launching next week. So we are resurrecting our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and our website. So we encourage all of our citizens in our city to follow Provo Kindness and engage with us in discussions about how we can disagree without being unkind, how we can learn to understand one another better, how we can engage in discussions, not to try to change each other's minds, to not call names, but to really learn to understand each other and recognize that we're all on the same team. We're all Team Provo, no matter where you live, no matter your circumstance, no matter if you look different than I do, we're all here together. And so I'm really excited that this initiative we've been trying to teach our children, we're now also working to teach our entire community. And so I hope that you'll join us all at Provo Kindness. So thank you.
Thank you for your report, Jennifer. Superintendent, approved travel and any miscellaneous items.
Thank you. I have one travel item just to report. I did approve, I mentioned it at the last board meeting, but I did want to approve one travel request, which was tennis to St. George. We aren't having very many student athletic and student activity events that are taking place, but this one did. And my understanding is it was successful. I also want to say, even though he's not here, the board has worked pretty closely over the last 7 years with Gary Wilson. Officially a week from today, Gary Wilson is going to be riding off into the sunset of retirement. He's retired more times than I can count, so I tease him about that, but he's been a wonderful addition to the school district, and he's been a good help to me. I worked with Gary in my previous district up in Washington, and he's been a wonderful addition here, and I wish him well, and I'd like to be able to convey also the board's thanks to him for all of his great work. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Keith, and please make sure that you express to Gary our deep appreciation as the board for the work that he has done while a part of the Provo City School District. And our best wishes for health and success and happiness in the future. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you all for coming.
And thanks to those of you who stayed. I realize I neglected you, but thank you all for being here too.
Yes, thank you.